something happened deep inside the Caspian Sea that few believed was even possible. Hundreds of miles from the nearest Ukrainian position, a cargo vessel suddenly erupted in flames. At first glance, the location made no sense. Ukraine has no ports there, no navy operating in those waters, and seemingly no direct way to reach a target in the middle of the sea. Yet the strike happened, and investigators quickly focused on one remarkable pattern. The vessel, identified as the Beggy and sailing under a Russian flag, had reportedly approached Iranian ports on 11 separate occasions with its tracking transponder switched off. Every time it neared those harbors, its electronic signal disappeared before later returning. According to Ukrainian military intelligence, that wasn't ordinary navigation. Officials allege the ship was quietly transporting military cargo that neither Moscow nor Tehran wanted publicly tracked. The reported shipments included ammunition, artillery shells, body armor and components linked to Shahid drones. Perhaps the most significant claim is the direction of travel. Rather than weapons moving from Russia into Iran, Ukrainian officials say the cargo was traveling from Iran toward Russia, portraying Tehran not as the customer but as the supplier. Iran strongly condemned the attack. Official statements described it as a hostile and criminal act that could not remain unanswered, and the issue was reportedly taken to the United Nations Security Council. Ukrainian officials rejected those accusations, arguing that Iran cannot claim victim status, while allegedly supporting Russia's military campaign with weapons and equipment. The controversy also centers on those 11 reported occasions when the vessel's transponder went silent near Iranian ports. Critics argue that repeatedly disappearing from tracking systems raises obvious questions about what was happening during those visits. According to Ukrainian officials, those gaps are a key part of the evidence behind the operation. They maintain the mission targeted what they describe as a shadow logistics network supplying Russia with equipment later used in attacks against Ukrainian cities. Attention then shifted to the technology that may have made the strike possible. Reports point toward Ukraine's long-range one-way attack drone, known as the N-196 Lydia, a system developed after waves of Shahid drone attacks began targeting Ukrainian territory. Designed for extended-range missions, the aircraft is believed capable of reaching targets far beyond the front lines, making operations once considered impossible increasingly realistic. Another crucial element was surveillance. Ukraine operates a synthetic aperture radar satellite that can reportedly observe the ground regardless of darkness, cloud cover, or poor weather. Unlike traditional optical satellites, radar imagery can continue collecting information when visibility is limited. According to Ukrainian officials, that capability played a major role in monitoring vessels that attempted to disappear by switching off their tracking systems. Officials say the operation was not based on a single discovery, but on months of patient observation. By combining satellite imagery with shipping records, analysts could reportedly identify repeated patterns whenever vessels vanished from public tracking before arriving at specific ports. That information was then used to build a clearer picture of the alleged logistics network. Before examining how the mission unfolded, attention turns back to the night of July 25th. According to Ukrainian statements, long-range drones launched by the security service entered the Caspian region and struck 4 separate targets during the operation. Those targets reportedly included the Filanovsky offshore oil platform, operated by Lukoil, the cargo vessel Port Alia, the dry cargo ship Beggy, and a Project 12418 Malmnia-class Russian missile boat. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky later publicly acknowledged the operation, while Ukraine's security service identified the targets through official telegram updates. According to those statements, the mission was presented as a lawful response to months of Russian attacks against Ukraine's southern ports and shipping infrastructure. Ukrainian officials argued that if Russia continued attempting to disrupt maritime trade, similar pressure could also be applied in waters Moscow had long considered secure. The operation immediately triggered a diplomatic response. Iran summoned Ukraine's charge d'affaires, condemned the strike as a criminal act, and stated that one sailor had reportedly been killed. Tehran also brought the incident before the United Nations Security Council, insisting the attack violated international law. Ukraine answered those accusations publicly. Acting Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha stated that Iran's complaints had no legal basis, arguing that Tehran had become a direct participant in Russia's military campaign by supplying equipment used during attacks on Ukraine. According to Kiev, a government providing military support cannot simultaneously portray itself as an uninvolved victim. One of the biggest questions surrounding the mission was how a vessel repeatedly disappearing from public tracking could still be located with such precision. Ukrainian officials point to two key elements, beginning with the transport route itself. They released maps outlining what they describe as the supply chain moving military equipment from Iran toward Russia. According to those published routes, Iranian-made Shahid drone components leave Tehran before traveling north to the Caspian port of Amrabad. From there, shipments reportedly cross the sea to Makhachkala in Russia's Dagestan region before continuing by road and air toward Russian military airfields. Officials identified two destinations in particular, saying those facilities serve as launch locations for drones later used against targets inside Ukraine. Rather than functioning as simple storage sites, they were described as active operational bases supporting ongoing attacks. Monitoring that network reportedly depended heavily on Ukraine's synthetic aperture radar satellite. The satellite itself has an unusual history. In 2022, Ukrainians raised more than $13 million within just 3 days to purchase Bayraktar TB2 drones. After the manufacturer donated the aircraft instead, the collected funds were redirected toward acquiring a radar surveillance satellite. According to Ukrainian officials, owning that satellite outright dramatically increased the speed at which radar imagery could be collected, giving analysts a far quicker picture of activity across the region. Unlike conventional imaging systems, synthetic aperture radar continues collecting data through darkness, cloud cover, and poor weather. Operating hundreds of kilometers above the Earth, it reportedly reconstructs detailed ground imagery by analyzing reflected radar signals. According to Ukrainian officials, owning the system instead of renting commercial satellite access significantly reduced the time needed to retrieve critical intelligence. Officials say the satellite has already delivered thousands of radar images, providing a constant stream of information that can be combined with long-range strike capabilities. But technology alone was not the decisive factor. Ukraine's military intelligence also relied on a method that required patience more than speed. According to available reporting, the aircraft believed to have carried out the mission was the An-196 Ludyai, a long-range one-way attack drone developed by Ukraine's defense industry together with the Antonov Design Bureau. Work on the project reportedly began in late 2022 as Ukraine searched for a direct response to repeated Shahid drone attacks. Although the design shares some broad similarities with other one-way attack drones, Ukrainian officials describe it as a platform built for precision strikes over extreme distances. It reportedly uses inertial navigation supported by satellite correction, follows complex pre-programmed flight paths, and carries a warhead estimated at between 50 and 75 kilograms. The longest-range version is also believed to remove its landing gear entirely, sacrificing recovery in exchange for additional range. According to available figures, its reach has gradually expanded from roughly 1,000 kilometers to somewhere between 1,400 and 2,000 kilometers, making operations deep inside Russian territory increasingly achievable. Officials say these drones are operated by Ukraine's 14th Regiment of Unmanned Aerial Systems, a formation that has become increasingly active in long-distance strike missions. Reaching the Caspian Sea, however, remained an enormous challenge. From likely launch areas inside Ukraine, the route would require crossing vast stretches of southern Russia before arriving over the inland sea. Previous missions reportedly completed that journey without interception, highlighting what Ukrainian analysts describe as gaps in Russia's air defense coverage. Rather than attempting to overwhelm every defensive system, the strategy appears to focus on identifying the weakest sections and guiding drones through those openings toward carefully selected targets. Questions also remain about the identity of the damaged vessel. Ukraine identified both ships involved as Russian-flagged and Russian-owned. Iran, however, described the casualty as an Iranian merchant ship with an Iranian crew. Neither side has publicly released full identification details or official tracking information, leaving uncertainty over whether both governments are referring to the same vessel or whether another ship has yet to be publicly identified. Regardless of that unanswered question, one point remains clear in the competing statements. Iran reacted forcefully through diplomatic channels, while Ukraine continued arguing that the vessel formed part of a wider supply network supporting Russian military operations. Each side maintained its own version of events, and the dispute quickly became another front in the broader conflict. Even so, analysts note that Iran continues to possess significant military capability and relies heavily on maintaining the resources needed to sustain its security infrastructure. According to the narrative presented by Ukrainian officials, disrupting logistics routes that allegedly transport military equipment could place additional financial and operational pressure on those networks. Attention then shifted beyond the Caspian Sea as new regional developments emerged. According to a report by the Wall Street Journal, Bahrain and Kuwait reportedly carried out their first known direct offensive operations inside Iranian airspace earlier this month, targeting drone and missile storage locations. The report also stated that the United Arab Emirates provided intelligence support and defensive assistance during the operation.